Right now, somewhere in the world, a family is sitting completely warm, no gas line running into their home, no electric heater humming in the corner, no monthly bill sitting on the kitchen table waiting to ruin their week. Just warmth, real, steady, reliable warmth. And the two things making that possible are so ordinary, so completely overlooked, that most people walk right past them every single day without a second thought. One of them is sand, the kind you find on a riverbank, in a construction yard, or honestly, just sitting in your backyard. The other is coal, not the industrial kind being shipped across oceans in massive cargo ships, just small, simple pieces of carbon that have been sitting in the earth for millions of years, waiting for someone smart enough to use them the right way. Together, these two materials can create something that modern energy companies have spent decades making sure you never figure out on your own. Now, before you scroll away thinking this is some kind of survival trick for people living off the grid in the mountains, stop. Because this is not that. This is real, practical, applicable information that works in a regular home, in a regular neighborhood, for a regular family trying to cut costs in a world where everything keeps getting more expensive. And if you have been watching this channel for any amount of time, you already know that we do not talk about things that do not matter. We talk about the things that actually affect your wallet, your life, and your future. And right now, your heating bill is one of the biggest silent drains on your money that almost nobody is talking about honestly. If you are new here, now is a good time to hit that subscribe button. This channel covers the economic realities that most people only find out about when it is already too late. And what we are getting into today is exactly that kind of information. The type that makes you stop and say, why did nobody ever tell me this before? So let us start at the beginning. Heat. It is one of the most basic human needs on the planet. You do not negotiate with cold. You either have warmth or you do not. And when you do not have it, every other problem in your life suddenly becomes bigger. Now, for most of modern history, the way people stayed warm was remarkably simple. They used what was around them. Wood, coal, animal fat, dried grass, whatever the land provided. And for thousands of years, that worked just fine. Then came the Industrial Revolution, then came natural gas pipelines, then came the electric grid, and slowly but surely, human beings went from being energy independent to being almost completely dependent on systems they do not own, do not control, and cannot opt out of without serious consequences. Think about what that actually means. You wake up on a cold morning, you need heat, and the only way you can get it is by paying a company you did not choose, a company with no real competition in your area, a company that sets its own prices, just to survive the winter. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most significant economic vulnerabilities that regular households carry, and most people treat it like it is just a fact of life. It is not a fact of life, it is a system. And like any system, once you understand how it works, you can find ways around it. Now here is where sand and coal come back into the picture, because what we are really talking about today is something called a thermal mass heat storage system. That sounds complicated. It is not. At its core, the concept is almost embarrassingly simple. Certain materials, and sand happens to be one of the best, are incredibly good at absorbing heat and then releasing it slowly over a long period of time. This is not a new discovery. Ancient civilizations built their homes and their heating systems around this exact principle. Thick stone walls, clay floors, sand-filled chambers, all of it designed to capture heat during the day and release it through the night. What changed is that we forgot, or more accurately, we were sold something more convenient and never looked back. But convenience has a price, and right now, that price is showing up on your monthly statement in a way that is becoming harder and harder to ignore. Coal in this equation plays a different but equally important role. When burned correctly, and we are going to get into what correctly actually means, coal produces a sustained high-temperature heat output that is significantly more efficient per unit than most people realize. The problem has never been coal itself. The problem has been the way most people use it. Inefficiently, wastefully, without understanding the basic science of combustion and heat retention. When you combine the right combustion source with the right thermal storage material, something remarkable happens. The heat does not just disappear into the air. It gets captured, stored, and released on a timeline that your body and your home can actually benefit from. And the cost of building this kind of system yourself, with materials you can source locally, often for free or close to it, that is exactly what we're going to break down, starting right after this. Here is where things start to get genuinely interesting, because most people, when they hear the words build your own heat source, immediately picture something complicated. They picture welding equipment and engineering diagrams and a weekend project that turns into a 3-month nightmare. But the reality of what we are talking about here is so much simpler than that mental image, and that simplicity is actually the most important part of the whole story. Because simplicity means accessibility. It means that this is not just for people with technical skills or large budgets or a lot of free time. This is for anyone who is tired of paying for something they could be producing themselves. Let us talk about the basic build first, because you need to understand the physical structure before the science behind it makes complete sense. What you are essentially creating is a contained combustion chamber surrounded by a dense layer of sand. The sand acts as your thermal battery. When the coal burns inside the chamber, it generates heat that radiates outward in all directions. Under normal circumstances, most of that heat would simply rise, hit the ceiling, and disappear. That is how most open fires and even most modern heaters work. They generate heat and then immediately lose a significant portion of it to the surrounding air before it ever reaches the people in the room. The thermal mass approach flips that dynamic entirely. When you surround your combustion source with sand, that sand begins absorbing heat from the very first moment combustion starts. It pulls the thermal energy in and holds it. And here's the part that most people find genuinely surprising the first time they hear it. Sand can hold heat for hours after the fire has completely gone out. We are not talking about 30 minutes of residual warmth. We are talking about a material that, depending on the thickness and density of the layer, can continue radiating usable heat for 6, 8, sometimes even 12 hours after the fuel source has been fully consumed. That changes the entire economics of the situation. Instead of burning fuel continuously through the night, you burn it once efficiently and then let the stored thermal energy do the work while you sleep. Now let us talk about coal specifically, because there is some important context here that most people are missing. When people think about coal as a fuel source, they tend to think about it in terms of the large-scale industrial use that has dominated the conversation for the last several decades. But that is not what we are discussing. Small-scale coal combustion, done correctly in a well-designed contained system, behaves very differently from industrial burning. The key variables are airflow, combustion temperature, and burn time. When you control those three things, you get a clean, sustained high-output burn that maximizes the energy stored in the coal and minimizes waste. Most people who have tried to use coal inefficiently have done so because they never understood these three variables. They treated it like wood, just light it and let it go, and got poor results. Coal is not wood. It requires a slightly different approach, and once you understand that approach, the efficiency difference is significant. The airflow component is critical. Coal needs a steady, controlled supply of oxygen to burn at the right temperature. Too much air, and you get a fast, hot burn that consumes your fuel quickly and generates more heat than your thermal mass can absorb efficiently. Too little air, and you get incomplete combustion, which wastes fuel and produces more byproduct than a properly tuned system would. The ideal is a slow, steady feed of air that keeps the combustion temperature consistent and gives the surrounding sand time to absorb the heat as it is being generated. This is not complicated to achieve. It comes down to the design of your air intake, which in a basic DIY setup can be as simple as a controlled opening at the base of your chamber. Temperature matters for a different reason. Sand begins storing heat meaningfully at temperatures above a certain threshold. Below that threshold, it absorbs some heat but releases it quickly. Above it, the storage capacity increases dramatically. The good news is that coal, when burning with proper airflow, naturally reaches and sustains temperatures well within the ideal range for sand-based thermal storage. This is not a coincidence. This is why these two materials work so well together. They are, in a sense, physically compatible in a way that makes the system more efficient than either would be alone. The physical construction of the unit itself requires very few materials beyond the sand and the coal. A basic outer container, which can be made from clay, brick, or even repurposed metal, holds the sand in place around the combustion chamber. The combustion chamber itself needs to be made from a material that can handle sustained high heat without cracking or deforming. Fire brick is the traditional choice, and for good reason. It is durable, widely available, and relatively inexpensive even when purchased new. In many areas, used fire brick can be sourced from demolition sites or salvage yards at little to no cost, which keeps the overall build budget extremely low. What you end up with, once the basic structure is assembled, is a system that looks simple on the outside, but behaves in a remarkably sophisticated way on the inside. Heat goes in, sand stores it, the room benefits from it for hours. And the total fuel cost to run this system for an entire cold night is a fraction duct, and we mean a genuine fraction duct of what the equivalent warmth would cost you running a gas heater or electric system for the same period. That gap in cost is not small. When you run the numbers across an entire heating season, the difference is the kind of money that actually changes things for a household operating on a tight budget. And the households that need this most are the ones that nobody in the energy industry is rushing to help. That last point is worth sitting with for a moment, because it gets to the heart of why most people have never heard any of this before. The energy industry is not a charity. It is not a public service in the way that word used to mean something. It is a collection of very large, very profitable businesses whose entire model depends on you needing them every single month, every single winter, for the rest of your life. The moment you stop needing them is the moment their revenue model has a problem. So the idea that these companies would invest in educating the public about low-cost, self-sufficient heating alternatives is not just unlikely, it is against their financial interest in the most direct way possible. That is not a conspiracy. That is just business. And understanding it as business, rather than as some abstract force of nature, is the first step toward making decisions that actually serve your interests instead of theirs. Now let us bring this all the way home, because we have covered the concept, we have covered the materials, we have covered the science of why sand and coal work together the way they do, and now it is time to talk about what this actually looks like in practice for a real household making this transition. Because the theory is important, but the reality is what matters when the temperature drops and the heating bill arrives. The first thing to understand is that this system is not an all-or-nothing proposition. You do not have to rip out your existing heating setup and replace it overnight with a DIY thermal mass unit. That is not the smart way to approach this, and frankly, it is not necessary. What most households find when they start experimenting with this approach is that the thermal mass unit works best as a primary heat source for the main living space, the room where the family spends the most time during the coldest hours of the day. The existing system, whether gas or electric, can remain as a backup for the rooms and hours that the DIY unit does not cover. This hybrid approach dramatically reduces your overall heating consumption without requiring you to commit completely to a new system before you have tested and understood it. The sand you need for this build is genuinely common. River sand, construction sand, even the kind of coarse sand sold at hardware stores for landscaping purposes, all of it works. The key property you are looking for is density and dryness. Wet sand loses a significant portion of its thermal storage capacity because the water absorbs and then rapidly releases heat in a way that undermines the slow, steady release you are trying to achieve. Dry, dense sand stores heat more effectively and releases it more evenly over time. If you are sourcing sand from a natural location, spread it out and let it dry completely before using it in your build. This one step makes a measurable difference in the performance of the finished unit. The coal sourcing question comes up a lot when people start researching this, and the answer is more straightforward than most people expect. Small quantities of coal for household use are available in most regions through agricultural supply stores, heating supply companies, and increasingly through online suppliers who deliver directly. In some rural areas, it can be sourced even more cheaply through local suppliers who have been serving small farming communities for generations and have largely been forgotten by the mainstream market. The quantities needed for a single-room thermal mass unit are not large. A well-designed system running at optimal efficiency uses considerably less fuel per hour of heat output than most people assume going in, and that efficiency only improves as the sand layer reaches its full thermal saturation point over the first few cycles of use. Safety is the part of this conversation that deserves direct, honest attention because any combustion-based system carries risks that need to be understood and managed properly. Ventilation is non-negotiable. Any system that burns fuel indoors must have adequate airflow to remove combustion byproducts from the living space. This is not optional, and it is not something to approximate. A proper flue or chimney connection that vents combustion gases to the outside is a fundamental requirement of any safe indoor burn system, DIY or commercial. If your current setup does not allow for this, the outdoor or semi-outdoor application of the thermal mass unit, where the heat radiates through a wall or into an adjacent space, is a viable and safe alternative that many builders actually prefer for its simplicity. Fire containment is the second non-negotiable. The outer structure of your unit needs to be built from materials that will not crack, warp, or fail under sustained high heat. Fire brick and high-temperature mortar are the standard for good reason. Standard household brick and regular mortar are not suitable for the combustion chamber itself, though they can be used for outer structural layers that are not in direct contact with the heat source. Taking the time to build the combustion chamber correctly from the start saves you from having to rebuild it later, and more importantly, it keeps the system safe for long-term use. Carbon monoxide is the invisible risk that every combustion system carries, and a basic carbon monoxide detector positioned in the room where the unit operates is a simple, inexpensive layer of protection that should always be in place. Modern detectors are cheap, reliable, and provide genuine peace of mind, that allows you to use the system confidently without second-guessing yourself every time you light it. Once these safety foundations are in place, what you have is a heating system that costs you almost nothing to run, uses materials that are widely available and often free, produces warmth that rivals what you were paying significant money for every month, and gives you a level of energy independence that most households in the developed world have simply forgotten was ever possible. That independence has real economic value. When the gas price spikes in January, and it will spike, it always does, you are not affected. When the electric grid strains under winter demand and prices surge, and they will, you are not in that conversation. You have stepped outside the system in the most practical, most grounded way possible, and the result is money that stays in your pocket instead of flowing to a company that was never particularly concerned about your well-being to begin with. This is what economic literacy actually looks like at the household level. It is not about stock portfolios or interest rates or macroeconomic policy, though all of those things matter. It is about understanding the systems that govern your daily costs and finding the places where you have more agency than you were ever told you had. Heating is one of those places. It has always been one of those places. The only thing that changed is that modern infrastructure made it easy to forget, and now the cost of that forgetfulness is showing up every winter on a bill that keeps going in one direction. The families who are sitting warm right now, the ones we mentioned at the very beginning of this video, are not doing anything magical. They are not engineers or scientists or people with unusual resources. They are just people who decided to pay attention, to learn something that the mainstream energy conversation never bothered to teach them, and to act on it. That decision costs very little. The alternative, staying dependent, staying passive, staying in a system that is designed to extract from you rather than serve you, costs quite a lot, every single month, for the rest of your life. If this video made you think differently about something you assumed was fixed, that is the whole point of this channel. Share this with someone you know who is struggling with their heating costs this winter, because the information that actually helps people tends to be the information that never trends on its own. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you tried anything like this? Are you considering it? Or is there something about your specific situation that makes this feel out of reach? Those conversations matter, and they help shape what this channel covers next. Every comment, every share, every person who watches this and then sends it to one other person, that is how useful information actually spreads in a world that is very good at bearing it. Stay curious, stay skeptical of expensive defaults, and we will see you in the next one.